planet's untouched natural environments are shrinking because of pressure from human populations. As these areas decline, the creatures specially adapted to live in them are in decline. Many species have disappeared, while many more are on the edge of extinction. Most biologists agree that the planet is going through a rapid extinction phase, caused by the effects of human degradation of the biosphere. Half the world's species could be gone in 100 years. In 2004, the Swiss-based World Wildlife Fund released a report showing that the high-quality lifestyle humans pursue leads to a poorer and sometimes untenable life for most of the creatures we share the planet with. It states that current human consumption of the planet's natural resources puts any animal walking on the ground, hanging in a tree, or heading for the water at risk of extinction. The Living Planet report looks at how climate change already affects ecosystems. The report is built on data from the Living Planet Index. This index reveals that from 1970 to 2000, populations of terrestrial and marine species dropped by 30%, while freshwater populations went down by 50%. The Living Planet report attributes this to the increasing human demand for food, fibre, energy and water. The Living Planet Index tracks trends in populations of more than 1,000 species. The report also examines the consequences of human consumption, ranging from commercial fishing in Hungary to polluted rivers in Kenya. The report uses what it calls the ecological footprint as a benchmark to compare current levels of human consumption with past findings. Wealthier nations are consuming more resources than ever before, and the impact on the biosphere has increased 2.5 times since 1961. It is unclear how long the current levels of human consumption can last. The tropical rainforests of Southeast Asia are under attack, and the animals that live there are suffering. If logging continues at its current rate, most of these forests will be gone in 5 years. Every year, the world consumes more than 250 million cubic metres of tropical hardwood. A single teak log can bring as much as $20,000. In some parts of Malaysia, there are moves to get the logging industry onto a sustainable footing, with thinning of forests rather than clear felling. But the lure of easy profit means the sustainable practices are not widespread. This extensive logging, as well as habitat fragmentation, has led to a sharp decline in numbers of orangutan, the arboreal great apes that live in these forests. In Malaysia and Sumatra, the problem is exaggerated because forests are being burned so areas can be replanted with oil palm plantations. The changes are becoming permanent, with the forests being prevented from regenerating. Modern mechanised techniques make the clearing work faster. The African oil palm was introduced into Malaysia and Indonesia in the early 1900s, and local wildlife is completely excluded. To make matters worse for the orangutan, an illegal trade has been functioning, with 53 animals being discovered in a private Bangkok zoo. The Indonesian orangutans, stolen and smuggled to Thailand, where they were forced to entertain tourists in boxing matches, will be returned to their homeland. The animals were rescued from the zoo in 2004 and have been the subject of bitter dispute between Thai and Indonesian authorities ever since. Plans were made to carry out DNA tests on the animals to ascertain the exact origins of the apes before repatriating them. But because they have been languishing in poor conditions in the zoo for so long, these plans have been scrapped. As the difficulties with the animals' repatriation continued, politicians became involved. Most of the apes were believed to have originated in Kalimantan in Borneo or the Sumatran forests of Indonesia, but it's believed a minority could have been smuggled in from the Malaysian parts of Borneo. Because their numbers have declined so rapidly, Indonesia is keen to care for these remaining animals. And recently there was the rare birth of an orangutan at the Safari Park Animal Sanctuary in Cisarua, West Java. 4-day-old Elmo was rejected by his natural mother and needed full-time care, feeding every 3 hours. Experts at the Centre for Orangutan Protection say he'll be in danger if he's ever returned to any of Indonesia's dwindling rainforests. Indonesia's tropical rainforests are disappearing 30% faster than previously estimated, threatening the long-term survival of the orangutan and other species. The Periyar Tiger Reserve in India's southwestern state of Kerala features impenetrable jungle and patches of undulating open grasslands. It is home to thousands of monkeys, deer, wild boars and other species, as well as 900 elephants and about 40 tigers. A century ago, there were about 40,000 tigers in India. They were a test of hunting skills for flamboyant Maharajas and officers of the Raj. Now, officials estimate there are about 3,700, but wildlife experts say the number is closer to 2,000. The indigenous Manan people, who once exploited the tigers, now risk their lives to protect them. By guaranteeing the Manans a comfortable, legal income from its Project Tiger, the government has made conservation worth more than poaching. The men work as rangers and guides, and the women make voluntary patrols, giving up 1 day every 2 weeks. Hunting is illegal, and trade in tiger parts banned. On the black market, a single animal can fetch as much as $50,000, so the temptation for poachers is very real. Tigers are vulnerable to poachers, but habitat degradation and the loss of prey species is also a problem. The patrols keep a watchful eye across all areas of the park. Tigers have survived here because Periyar's rugged terrain has made access more difficult. Further north, where the land is flat and open, no tigers survive. Across the world, seed hunters are gathering the seeds from endangered plant species in an attempt to save them from extinction. It is a highly skilled job requiring an extensive knowledge of plants and the delicate techniques needed to harvest the seeds. A seed hunter will preserve a leaf and a flower from the specimen so that precise identification can be made back in the laboratory. A special field press is used to keep the samples in good condition for what is often a very long journey. If preserved correctly, these seeds will be capable of germination after periods as long as 200 years. The specimens are sent back to the Wakehurst Millennium Seed Bank. When they arrive, the seeds and foliage are checked, registered and dried for several weeks. The seed bank is home to around 300 million seeds, collected from all over the world, and stored for protection in this state-of-the-art facility. In an age where overpopulation is threatening many of the Earth's dryland habitats, hundreds of plants are threatened. The current rate of extinction is 70 times greater than what is considered normal along geological timescales. Many seeds have a dispersal mechanism that lets them ride the wind. The seeds must be removed from the flowers or shell casing and sifted in a special aspirator. The Millennium Seed Bank project is part of the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew. The project aims to collect the most important dry land seed by 2010. The MSB works with institutions from South Africa, Madagascar, Namibia, Kenya, Burkina Faso, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Chile, Mexico, the USA, and Australia. The seed bank is not just a large storage vault. Botanists need to learn about the rare specimens they are holding, so research is an important part of their work. The seed bank must also germinate rare seeds to find out what conditions they need to thrive and when they come into flower. Plant scientists are now growing a special type of clover in a bee-proof greenhouse to find the optimal times for pollination and seed collection. This will have a bearing on the seed's ability to remain viable after long periods in storage. Seed development scientist Laura Butler will try to identify a characteristic that will signify the seed's maturity. This is useful information to pass on to others who will later be trying to harvest seed from the same species. Cylindrophyllum hallei is a South African plant that was thought to have been lost. In 2001, an MSB team located a population of just 6 plants on a plateau near Loresfontein. Seeds were collected and new plants grown in one of the greenhouses. Propagation protocols have been developed and seed is now available for reintroduction. One of the Millennium Seed Bank's roles is the dissemination of information and expertise. The MSB facility has accommodation for visiting scientists. Recently, experts from 16 sub-Saharan countries gathered at the facility to exchange information on seeds and trees and to coordinate conservation strategies. Detailed knowledge about Africa's plants is patchy, and forests there are disappearing at an alarming rate. The Millennium Seed Bank stores more than 24,000 plant species, and it has been conserving seeds from wild plants since 1974. Samples are available to restore degraded lands, to reintroduce species into the wild, and to restock depleted populations. To ensure the protection of the seeds, they are kept in underground vaults, which are bomb and radiation-proof. Many of these species have only ever germinated naturally. At the MSB, samples will be germinated in laboratory conditions. The team performs about 10,000 germination tests every year. In the germination laboratory, lab technicians and biology students methodically check seed samples to see how they respond to different conditions. Occasionally, the germination laboratory is presented with an unusual project. In 1803, during the Napoleonic Wars, the Prussian ship Henrietta was captured by the British Navy. A document wallet belonging to Dutch merchant Jan Teerlink was seized and eventually found its way to Britain's National Archive. Recently, among the papers and samples of silk, seeds were discovered, and they were sent to the MSB to see if they were still viable. The seeds were well packed, but they had been on a ship for at least 12 months and had been lying in the Tower of London for more than 100 years. Teerlink was importing silk and tea from Java and China, and the seeds must have been for personal use. Of the 32 different types of 200-year-old seed in the wallet, the MSB was able to get 3 species to grow. One, a legume called Liparia villosa, did particularly well, with 16 of 25 seeds coming to life. The other 2 plants remain a mystery, but comparisons with other seeds suggest that they originated in South Africa. As they grow, they will undergo DNA testing, and they will be compared with current specimens. Another seed repository, the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, has recently been completed. Svalbard, an archipelago situated in the Arctic Ocean, about halfway between Norway and the North Pole, was chosen to house the vault as it has all the natural prerequisites for storing the seeds. The underground vault has been built as a 120-metre-long tunnel inside a mountain, at about 130 metres above sea level, near Svalbard's largest town, Longyearbyen. Permafrost and the thick rock will ensure that the samples will remain frozen, even without electricity. The location guarantees stable permafrost and takes into account the prospect of rising sea levels due to global warming. It has been built so deep inside the mountain that any possible changes to the climate on Svalbard shouldn't matter. The vault consists of 3 underground chambers. The seed vault has the capacity to store 4.5 million different seed samples. Each sample will contain on average 500 seeds, so a maximum of 2.25 billion seeds may be stored there. According to the Global Crop Diversity Trust, which is one of the 3 organisations running the project, seeds are vulnerable to threats such as war, climate change, natural catastrophe, and more routinely but no less damagingly, poor management. The storing of as many seeds as possible is meant to secure the planet's food supply. The Nordic Gene Bank is responsible for its management and operation. The Galapagos archipelago, 1,000 kilometres to the west of Ecuador, is known for the large number of species that are found here and nowhere else. The marine iguana is the only lizard capable of foraging in the sea. It is unique to the Galapagos. The Sally Lightfoot crab and the Galapagos pelican are also endemic to the island. The Galapagos flamingo, like so many other animals here, is named after its island home. Charles Darwin visited the islands in 1835. It was the variations in species of finches between individual islands that set him thinking. The result was The Origin of the Species, his book that laid out the theory of natural selection or evolution. Most of the species here rely on the ocean to sustain them, and a new plan to introduce longline fishing to the area has conservationists worried. Longline fishing is a technique that involves lines many kilometres long, holding hundreds of thousands of baited hooks, which catch and kill as many birds and animals as the fish that they are targeting. UNESCO declared the islands a World Heritage Site in 1978 and has recently sent a delegation to the Galapagos to investigate claims that the island's fishermen want to introduce longline fishing to the extremely sensitive area. Living in the area are endangered marine mammals, sharks, sea lions, albatrosses, and seabirds that will all fall victim to the attractive shiny metal lures, getting caught on the lines and drowning. The Corcovado National Park, on the Osa Peninsula of southwestern Costa Rica, is a thickly rainforested area known for its diverse populations of monkeys. It is one of the world's most biodiverse regions, boasting land, sea and freshwater ecosystems. Its 44,000 hectares of land and 5,000 hectares of seawater are preserved in their natural state. Normally, the park is home to around 10,000 primates. Spider monkeys, howler monkeys, capuchin, white-faced and squirrel monkeys live off the wild fruit, flowers, leaves and insects that grow here in abundance. But in 2005, something peculiar happened that biologists still have trouble explaining. At least 3,000 monkeys of differing species suddenly died. This was around 30% of Corcovado's total primate population. Local experts called in assistance from the United States to investigate the mysterious deaths. Blood samples were collected and sent to the University of Texas for further analysis. It was thought that some type of virus had spread through the primate population. Pathologists checking the blood samples could find nothing wrong. The scientists were baffled. It took a long time to piece the puzzle together. At the end of 2005, Corcovado had received huge amounts of rain. In September, 990 millimetres were recorded. In October, the area had 1,500 millimetres, and November saw a further 1,000 millimetres of rain. It is now thought the rain reduced the availability of food and also affected the ease with which the monkeys could forage for food. Such shocks can send delicately balanced animal populations spiralling towards extinction. In the tropical savanna around the Sri Lankan town of Polonnaruwa, the thousands of wild elephants that once roamed freely are slowly disappearing. The millions of people living in the region are challenging the elephants in a daily battle for space, and the elephants are losing. Across Sri Lanka, there are barely 3,000 elephants left. About 150 elephants are killed each year for their ivory, but it is the habitat loss that is the biggest threat to the animals. Sri Lankan conservationists are trying to preserve the elephants in their different herds so that they continue to breed in a sustainable way. Elephant safari tours are not helping conserve their habitats. Instead, the elephants are being driven out from their natural areas as forests are manicured for tourists. The perilous state of elephants is not unique to Sri Lanka. According to a United Nations report, the elephant population across Asia has fallen from hundreds of thousands at the turn of the 20th century to barely 16,000 in 11 countries today. The Asian elephants in Sri Lanka don't migrate as much as the African elephants do. They move locally within their home range, which for a typical Sri Lankan herd is about 83 square kilometres. These areas are being intruded upon by people coming to cut trees, reducing the elephants' food reserves. At the Polonnaruwa rubbish dump, plastic bags, hospital waste and garbage from the tourist town's hotels are a feast for scavenging animals. The elephants have become so desperate for food that they have turned to scrounging amongst the garbage. It is the same story across the world. Growing human populations need more and more space, and the animals that once roamed freely are being squeezed into shrinking islands of forest. In Sri Lanka, elephants are being forced to live off the muck discarded by humans. The elephants in Sri Lanka need much more protection to prevent them from becoming an endangered species.